Welcome to the Education Marketing Leader podcast with Chris Rapozo. If you're looking to dive into the latest industry insights, draw inspiration from education success stories, or just want to sharpen your marketing skills, you're in the right place. Here, we bring you a diverse range of voices from experts and leaders in the field, offering you a unique blend of professional development and practical strategies. Whether you want to understand your audience better, stay updated with the latest tech trends in marketing, or expand your professional network, we've got you covered. So while you're driving on your morning commute or winding down after a busy day, let's explore the dynamic world of education marketing together.
For higher ed marketing professionals listening, what are some of the best practices that you can share to keeping a digital content strategy both flexible and focused?
Yeah, my boss is always admonishing me to be nimble, and it is important. Flexibility is important. One tactic I would say is crowdsource your campus community. Leverage feedback from students and key stakeholders. So, sometimes we're quick to put feedback in the discard bin. I always try to make a note of it, process it, evaluate it, and then, if it's valid, implement the change, and sometimes immediately. So I would say also that innovation should be data driven. Sometimes we lead with our assumptions. That should never be the case. If you have a gut instinct, if you have an assumption, validate it, then proceed. Numbers will keep you nimble. Consider a broad range of data points too. That will help you to distinguish between trends and anomalies.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Education Marketing Leader with Chris Rapozo. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Danielle Ford. Danielle, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, Kean University.
Well, thanks you so much for joining. I got introduced to you a couple of months ago with one of my fellow ed tech marketers and podcast host, Shira Hattori. So shout out to him. Great episode you had with him. And I figured, hey, why not have Danielle on the show as well? So share some of her insights on content strategy. So Danielle, I did a little bit of research on you on LinkedIn, and I found out that you have a degree in journalism from Rutgers University in New Jersey, and you have been in higher ed marketing at the university since 2010. Can you give us a little bit about your background, your journey into higher ed marketing, and your job as the assistant director of digital content strategy?
Sure. So my journey, I feel like I took a bit of an indirect route. At Rutgers, I actually double majored in journalism and English. And my college experience was really full of creative experimentation. I did an independent study in theater. I wrote and directed plays, wrote a snarky entertainment column that was a little bit Wesley Morris, a little bit Teen Beat for my college newspaper, the Daily Targum. My first role in out of college was a sales role in the technology industry. And that convinced me of little more than that marketers were having all the fun. And so I was determined that my career was going to be in marketing. And my first full-time marketing gig was a marketing communications role at LifeCell. The lovely Kate Waxman taught me a lot. I worked on advertising copy, website edits, brochures. And one day, Kate handed me an HTML handbook, and she said, learn this. I don't have time to teach it to you, but it'll be valuable. I still have that same handbook today. I came to Kean initially as a consultant project managing a full redesign of Kean.edu. And later, they brought me on as a marketing strategist, which was a really broad role. I was writing for the alumni magazine, writing press releases and speeches, planning marketing events, developing student-focused marketing campaigns. So my current role as assistant director for digital content strategy is a lot more focused because I manage the Kean website, which comprises over 4,000 pages of content, and our mobile app. I develop content messaging, layouts, some digital advertising. And as campus initiatives launch and evolve, I'm developing a web presence for them. I'm communicating their values and developing a visual identity for those projects. And then a big part of my role is also data analysis and SEO, translating analytics and insights into actionable strategy.
With higher ed institutions, things are constantly evolving, especially with the looming demographic enrollment cliff, which is especially hitting the Northeast and the Midwestern United States. And we know that with that coming, priorities will often shift. So how have you observed these shifts at Kean University, and how do they influence your digital content strategy going forward into 2025 and then for the next decade?
Yeah, so declining birth rates are going to correspond to decreased enrollment. Some forecasts predict declines of as much as 15% after 2025. The market is becoming increasingly competitive. But I will say at Kean, we don't view the forecast as that dire. One of the reasons is New Jersey has always been an incredibly competitive higher education marketplace. And the reason for that is New Jersey has long exported more college students than any other state in the nation. So because, like we have quite a few big name universities in New Jersey competing for a relatively small pool of students, Kean has always been punching far above our weight class. So this year we have the second consecutive year of record enrollment at Kean. So I think when we look toward the future, our view is incredibly optimistic. One of the reasons for that is that a significant percentage of our students are first gen. Currently, our students come from 82 countries and 35 states. So we're one of the most diverse universities in the nation. Kean, I think when it comes to enrollment, we're looking more at kind of maintaining those record numbers. We just surpassed 17,000 and also establishing ourselves as a research presence in the region. We're aggressively pursuing R2 status. And I think with that will come, a whole new audience and a whole new caliber of student to the university.
Your student demographics, are they mostly traditional age students, or do you have non-traditional students, adult learners? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'd say that most of our students are traditional age students, but we are there's an increased emphasis on our online programs, and our online programs are being expanded to include unique pathways for students age 25 and above that are going to factor in, that are going to allow them to use professional experience and life experience toward college credit. So those programs are being developed, but I think that's definitely a growing part of our audience and target market.
Every time you make a switch, you got to make sure that different departments are aligned. So can you walk us through the process that you undertake to align your digital content strategy with Kean University's changing institutional priorities? What do you guys do there?
Yeah, so I'm part of a department that includes creative, marketing, and advertising, video, media relations, and alumni engagement. Our leadership team meets weekly to discuss ideas and strategy and discuss institutional priorities and needs. Our department has really strong leadership. I report directly to Karen Smith, Vice President of University Relations and Alumni Affairs. And so Karen oversees all the university's marketing, advertising, and media relations. Alignment is less of a challenge when there's consistent cross-channel messaging and productive cross-functional collaboration. So we also collaborate really closely with research and academic affairs. And Kean President Lamont Repillet's overarching vision for the future of the university, it's really apparent in our branding and messaging. So there's a synergy of purpose and product that's achieved.
And since you're meeting on a weekly basis, that helps open the dialogue. If you just meet once a quarter or every 6 months, then there may be a disconnect and silos build. Have you faced any challenges achieving alignment in the past, and how have you overcome them? Did you have to, was there a time where you didn't meet on a weekly basis to keep that rapport open, and what did you do about that?
I guess one challenge that we faced over the years is just different shifts and changes in leadership. I think Karen has been with our department about 6 years now and has brought really focused leadership and vision during her entire tenure. So that's definitely been an advantage. I've gone through periods where I didn't have like a direct supervisor. That was definitely a challenge, trying to contribute when you're kind of an orphan on a team, so to speak. I think when it comes to alignment, we have more assets and liabilities. And one of our main assets is a highly collaborative structure. So we don't work in silos. Our projects are really collaborative. I'm working with creative on the visuals. I'm working with video on how to incorporate their content into our site in meaningful ways. Working with media relations on highlighting their news content throughout the site so that it stays current and timely and interesting. So yeah, I think collaboration is kind of the antidote to misalignment.
Yeah, you with your journalism degree, the importance of being timely with your messaging to get the most out of it. Can you tell us a little bit about your department? How many people are in the department?
Yeah, so the Department of University Relations, there are about 20 people.
20.
The web team, I am a team of one. I do have a student assistant, and there are two other staffers who support me on an ad hoc project basis.
So once you start aligning your content strategy with the institutional priorities that you discussed during your weekly meetings, how do you measure its effectiveness? What metrics, KPIs do you use, and what are those priorities?
Yeah, so there's quite a few. I think one of the measurements that we definitely use, I mean, we try at Kean, we have a culture of data driven innovation.
Mm.
And to support that, there's a lot of data analysis that's involved. We invest heavily in usability testing and UX research. So I think quantifying the user experience in those ways helps us to identify and eliminate UX pain points and anti-patterns. And we definitely place a lot of emphasis on functionality, navigability, ease of use. These things often distinguish a website even more than design. And so I think one of the metrics we look at is kind of time to completion. When we're testing, a lot of our testing is task-based, and we're looking at the time it takes our users to complete various tasks. We're trying to keep that time to a minimum, just to ensure that important information is readily accessible. We're also recently we shifted to a more conversion-focused model. I think that's definitely our priority. We're looking at conversions. Some of our core conversions are applications, but also requests for information and campus visits. Campus visits convert at a really high rate. So do interactions with admissions counselors. So, we're trying to connect our students with a counselor as soon as possible, because those interactions are one of the biggest determining factors of college decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I went to school as an adult learner, and I did the online program at the University of Florida, and I cannot tell you the importance of having a good academic advisor on staff that just keeps you going, right? Because a lot of these students, they face adversities from the outside. Life gets busy with work and with family, and to have somebody, a trusted counselor and advisor, that definitely helps also with retention, right? Which also is very important for the overall health of the organization. Because I heard somebody say we don't recruit students, we recruit alumni. So when they come into our institutions, we want to make sure they go all the way through and graduate and then get the return of investment, have a good experience, refer us to their friends and family down the road. So there's a lot going on with AI right now, generative AI, ChatGPT. There's sort of a commoditization of content out there. Everybody's an editor and everybody's a content producer now. It just takes a couple of prompts for somebody to spit out a blog post. So how do you anticipate content needs changing in the future based on generative AI, the commoditization of the content, and the looming demographic enrollment cliff? What shifts do you see coming in the future to make sure that your key stakeholders, your target audiences, see your messaging, resonate with it, and it doesn't get lost?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're already leveraging AI in interesting ways at Kean. One of the most impactful, I would say, is I'm a fan of chatbots. I think chatbots are really helpful in the admissions process. I think that kind of tech, it really kind of anticipates what the human response would be. And there's such a strong correlation between these AI generated customer responses and to various prompts and, what a human user would provide. So in terms of level of service, and cost, that's a really effective model. When it comes to content, I think that, humans, we haven't been replaced yet. It's definitely, there's a lot to be said for the creativity and the collaboration that comes from a creative marketing team. I think there are ways to kind of leverage generative AI for efficiency, and maybe as an ideation tool. That's how I sometimes use it for brainstorming. It's interesting to see the variety of responses that you get, and also how when you kind of drill down a little bit more and provide more granular queries, and data points, how much more kind of just relevant the replies become. So I think we've done a lot of content about AI as opposed to using AI for content creation. We have a podcast, the Urban Impact Podcast, which the producer is our director of marketing and advertising, and then our video content director. And two of our academics host the series, including our SVP, Mike Salvatore, and Barbara George Johnson. So, like on the Urban Impact Podcast, we've had quite a few episodes about AI and the implications of the technology. It's definitely all the buzz in the industry right now is about AI. But I think when we're thinking about content, we're thinking more about authenticity and something that's really grounded in campus experience, right? Because it's like digital experience is one thing, but it's really important that digital experience aligns with campus experience. So I think that, like that's another reason that visits are one of our core conversions. When students enter this environment, it's an academic environment that's rigorous and challenging, but it's also a warm family-like culture. And, a beautiful park-like campus that goes all the way back to 1855. So I think, it's digital experiences are not going to replace in-person experiences anytime soon. So I think as a creator of digital experiences, I'm always thinking about the human element. I'm always thinking about marketing the in-person experience. And I think that because our brand is grounded in that kind of authenticity, and our message really resonates with our audiences.
Yeah, and then you want to be able to showcase that on-campus experience through student spotlights, for example, and just to share how life is on Kean University for real, not just on a stock photo. So having those brand ambassadors speak on video, or showing those pictures, or even having those interactive maps. If you're from out of state or from out of country and you can't tour before you make the commitment to see what you're signing up for. But I have to agree, when I went to the University of Florida online, every once in a while, I lived in Tampa at that time, but every once in a while I drove to Gainesville to step foot on campus. It was about 2 hours away. And the more I did that, the more a connection I made with the place, the more of a school pride I developed. Because if I'm just logging into the online portal all the time, finishing my courses, there isn't the same connection there as when I actually go in there and immerse myself in the institutional environment and just be around other students, even if they're 20 years younger than me. But you're still in there as a student, and you built that affinity for the organization.
Yeah, I like the point you made earlier, Chris, about recruiting alumni, because retention is definitely an institutional priority at Kean. I think I mentioned that a lot of our students are first generation. So we're not just concerned about recruiting students, we're concerned about retaining and graduating them, providing viable pathways to long-term success. And I think when we think about that, advisement is a core piece of that. One of the projects I'm working on right now is for the President's Advisory Task Force. And so there's been a lot of assessment that has been done of advising at Kean, and of what the student experience is like when it comes to advisement, and what kind of support resources are we providing for our students. And so highlighting those initiatives, like those are content streams that are like really valuable and relevant, because students want to know, okay, like what kind of tools and what kind of resources are available to me that are going to help me along my journey. They want to get a sense of community, but also a sense of resources, because, if our students are under-resourced, they're going to struggle throughout.
Yeah, that's so true. And there's also it's a bit scary when you're the first one in your family to go to university and nobody's done it before you. So you're that outlier, and everybody's either looking at you and putting a lot of pressure on you for being that one who made that leap to the next level, or there may be some jealousy involved by siblings, by people that didn't make it there. So having that support from the institution is very important. And I remember the first 2 years I went to community college, and there was I had to go on campus to do like a campus tour. And I remember at the end of the campus tour at this particular campus, the president came in, or the dean of the university or college, and he said, it was a Saturday morning with like 7 people in there, everybody either first generation or adult learner, because Saturday morning they worked, and we just sat there at our table, and this guy said, look to your left and to your right, 2 out of 3 are not going to graduate. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is horrible. Because first of all, you make that step to go to university, it's a big step for you. It's kind of scary. And then this guy comes in and tells you you're probably not going to make it. So it's like, oh my God.
I hate those stories. My sister had a similar experience, and there's nothing wrong with a program that's rigorous and challenging, right? That is our intent. But you also should provide support, because I think at Kean, one of the things that distinguishes our culture is that every staffer has a vested interest in student success, right? So we're not looking at any of our kids like, you're not going to make it. No, the view is, we want all of you to make it. How can we help you make it? I think also when we think about first generation students, we have to recognize that there's a vocabulary to academia that not everyone is familiar with. So how can we make that language more accessible? And we need to translate for them at times. Not everyone knows what an undergraduate is. Not everyone knows what a registrar is. If your parents did not attend university, those terms may not be familiar. As part of our commitment to accessibility, recently I spearheaded a project that translated Kean.edu into Spanish. Leveraging with a mandate from Karen, and leveraging an AI technology that supports both machine translation, but also uses AI to leverage multiple glossaries. We translated Kean.edu into Spanish, and then also, not only is the entire website available in Spanish, but also some of our video library. So the college tour, Kean was featured on an episode of the Amazon series, The College Tour, but we were also one of the first universities to participate in the college tour in Espanol. So that was filmed, I think, 10 or more episodes with student ambassadors from, many different countries, just highlighting the campus experience, but fully in Spanish. So I think in accessibility, whether it's translating jargon or translating, into, because I think overall our goal is to have the language accessible. So it's like, we're never watering it down. Some of our content is academic in nature. But when it comes to our marketing content, that's always written in a way that even a parent who doesn't have a degree would be able to really understand next steps for their student, but also the value proposition of a Kean degree.
Yes, that is so important to have that accessibility and speak in a language that people understand. Because when I went to school, I did it part-time, so I could pay out of pocket. And I remember the first couple of times I was like, where do I pay? Like, I didn't know where to pay. And I'll Google it, and it says, look for Bursa office. I'm like, I never heard the word Bursa before, so I didn't know what that was. So they never clicked like, oh, this is what you pay. So, making that understandable as well, to know how people can pay their tuition fees is very important as well. It sounds like you're very flexible over there with the content on the Kean site, because you translated everything in Spanish, which is a big undertaking. For higher ed marketing professionals listening, what are some of the best practices that you can share to keeping a digital content strategy both flexible and focused?
Yeah, my boss is always admonishing me to be nimble, and it is important. Flexibility is important. One tactic I would say is crowdsource your campus community. Leverage feedback from students and key stakeholders. So, sometimes we're quick to put feedback in the discard bin. I always try to make a note of it, process it, evaluate it, and then, if it's valid, implement the change, and sometimes immediately. So I would say also that innovation should be data driven. Sometimes we lead with our assumptions. That should never be the case. If you have a gut instinct, if you have an assumption, validate it, then proceed. Numbers will keep you nimble. Consider a broad range of data points too. That will help you distinguish between trends and anomalies.
Yeah, that is such a good point, because we all got our unconscious biases, and we think, well, this has got to be correct. If I think it is correct, if I think that is the way to go, then it probably is. But you always want to seek counsel from other professionals in the industry, as well as getting the data from your analytics. For example, like I recently wrote a white paper for Hannon Hill on the demographic enrollment cliff and the marketing shift towards non-traditional students. And I made sure I reached out to about 10 higher ed marketers and send them my table of contents just to make sure, is this stuff that I'm about to cover relevant to you? Because it seems relevant to me, but if you don't care about what's in there and you're my key audience, then I might as well don't even start or change things up. So we don't waste our time in both ways, as the writer and as the reader. But as we get the episode to a close, and we touched on AI a little bit already, but looking ahead, how do you see the landscape of higher ed marketing and content strategy evolve? And what is some of the advice that you give other higher ed professionals that aim to stay ahead of the curve?
Yeah, I would say that messaging should be grounded in reality. Market truths, market realities. Recently, we did some usability testing comparing Kean.edu to a direct competitor. And 3 out of 5 students preferred the Kean brand to our competitor's brand. They said Kean seemed really genuine and to offer more of a community. They also talked about how they like the institutional culture and the humor, and said that, like described a warm family-like atmosphere. Now, that is how we feel about our campus culture, but I was delighted to hear that it came across. And I think one of the reasons it connects is because it's rooted in this authenticity. So that was really validating for me, but it also underscored something that over a decade in marketing has taught me. You can't sell who you're not. So if what you have is rigor and excellence, and you're talking warmth and family, talk about rigor and excellence. At Kean, we have both. We have an innovation-driven research culture, but there's also a warm family-like environment where every staffer has a vested interest in student success. So when we speak to we speak to those points and we illustrate that culture visually in imagery and with video, then it's really compelling, because nothing's more compelling than the truth.
That is such a fact. You want to make sure you got the right people in the door in order to create an environment that is authentic to your institution as well as to that person, that there's a good blend. If not, then you have the transfers, or you have the people that have some college but no degree because they couldn't mesh with where they were with the culture. So it's very important. It's not just about, it's like an ed tech, right? If you get a client in and he or she doesn't use your product and they churn over time and then have a bad experience and tell their friends about your company, about the bad experience, it just leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth that's involved. So better know ahead of time what you're getting yourself into and relaying that with your messaging. So Danielle, thank you so much for your time today, for all your insights that you shared. If people want to get in touch with you to learn more about digital strategy and content for higher ed, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure. You can reach me at LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is linkedin.com/Danielle Denise Ford.
Very good. And I'll be sure to tag you in the recap.
Okay, great.
All right, Danielle, thank you so much for being a part of this show, and I hope you have a good day.
You too, Chris. It's been a pleasure.
All right.